Today, we're thrilled to be joined by Erica Tutko, Senior Consultant at Leyton, one of the world's largest independent consulting firms, helping companies improve their performance through federal and state research and development tax credits. Erica joined the Leyton team just under a year ago to help food and beverage companies leverage the research and development tax credit and accelerate growth and innovation. Prior to Leyton, Erica spent 8 years at Credit Suisse in the financial services industry and 5 years in the software industry, including 3 years at Oracle with a focus on point of sale systems and hospitality software. Erica, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you so much for sharing this knowledge and insight for food businesses on how they can better capture some of the tax credits that are available to them given their research and development work. Obviously we'd love to be hosting something like this in person, but appreciate your willingness to do so virtually. I'll hand it over to you. And then for all of our attendees here today, please feel free to reach out directly to me via the chat with questions if you have them over the course of the next 30 minutes. Additionally, we will leave time for Q&A at the end. We'll allow folks to unmute themselves and ask questions directly as well at that time. So thank you all for attending, and Erica, over to you.
Thank you, Lauren. Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be participating in Branchfood's Serving Up Support virtual series. So thanks again for having me, and let's get started. So again, thank everybody for joining today and listening in on how the R&D tax credit can help food and beverage companies during COVID-19. Again, my name is Erica Tutko, and I am a senior R&D consultant at Leyton. I work with a number of food and beverage companies to help them claim for the credit. So hopefully you will find some value in today's webinar. The presentation should take about 20 minutes, and there will be some time after the presentation, as Lauren mentioned, for some Q&A if anybody has any questions. All right, so today we are going to go over the R&D tax credit. So what is the R&D tax credit? So I'm going to show you where the R&D is. We're going to go over some of the areas of R&D in the food and beverage industry. I am going to explain to you what activities and expenses are eligible to claim and how you can claim the credit and how we can help you claim it. Additionally, we'll go over a few case studies from some current clients, and then again, we'll leave some time for Q&A. So what is the R&D tax credit? So the research and development tax credit was designed as an incentive for US companies to increase research spending. The credit was initially established as a temporary credit in the 1980s, and it was finally made permanent as a tax regulation in 2015. Initially, only larger companies were taking advantage of the credit because when it was first introduced, it was introduced as a 2-year incentive only. So it didn't really make sense for smaller companies to commit the time and the resources into calculating the credit, especially if it wasn't a sure bet that the credit was going to be renewed. In 2015, through the PATH Act, the credit was made a permanent tax regulation. So this made the credit a sure bet, something that companies can take advantage of year after year and include in their business plans. Additionally, when it was made permanent, it broadened to include early stage companies. So we'll dive into how the credit can help establish companies as well as early stage companies a little later in the discussion. The reasoning behind the R&D tax credit is that, again, it is a government incentive to reward companies for creating or incorporating new technology and new techniques and processes into their business. And most of all, it's to create jobs in the US. The purpose of the credit is to stimulate the economy and to keep those jobs here in the US. And again, this is a credit that the government really wants companies to take advantage of. So on this slide, and we're going to get into the food and beverage aspect of the presentation on the next slide, but just wanted to show you this slide. It might surprise you to how many different types of businesses do qualify for the credit. As you can see, there's some no-brainer industries that you would expect R&D in, obviously pharma, software, tech, but we do work with a large number of companies in very different sectors. So construction, a lot of food manufacturing companies, dental is actually a big industry with R&D as well. So it certainly doesn't hurt to reach out to me if you have any questions. But again, just wanted you to see just the broad range of companies that can claim for the credit that are outside of food and beverage. So qualifying food and beverage companies, since this is a food and beverage focused webinar, here is a list of the types of food and beverage companies that we work with. We work with a very large number of breweries, not only in New England, but all over the US. We work with a lot of craft distilleries, kombucha companies. We have pet food companies that we work with, baby food companies. We work with as well. We work with a couple flavor companies. Now that cannabis has become legal on a state level, we've been working with a number of CBD infused food and beverage companies, as well as hemp seed companies. There is a lot of R&D in farming, so both in crop farming as well as livestock, and again, food manufacturing, alternative food companies. I mean, you name it. There's, if you're, especially on the startup side, if you're a newer startup food company, all you're doing right now is R&D and recipe development. So chances are that you're definitely going to qualify. And again, we work with some larger, more established brands in the food and beverage industry, as well as startups. So happy to talk to you if you have any questions. And again, I think important to mention that not only do we do work locally in New England, we can help companies out across the US as well. All right, so how do you qualify for the R&D tax credit? So the IRS has a 4-part test that your company must meet to qualify. So the first part of the test is it needs to be a new or improved product or process. So it doesn't need to be new to the world, it just needs to be new to your company. The second part of the test is it needs to be technological in nature. There needs to be an application of a hard science. So the third part of the test, there needs to be a process of experimentation. And the fourth part, you need to eliminate the elimination of uncertainty. So I'm just going to give you a very simple example of how the 4-part test pertains to a food company. So let's say I own a bread company and I want to provide a gluten-free option. So the new or improved business component, this is the first gluten-free offering in our line of bread that our company sells to various food distributors that we're going to offer. In order to be technological in nature, the baking process in itself is based on the chemistry of ingredients. So there's your technological part of the test. The process of experimentation. So, let's say it took several different recipe modifications to create a viable product. A process of focus groups, regulation testing, ingredient sourcing, coming up with the final product as well. This is where you'll get the experimentation by trying a few different ways, process and error. That's where your process of experimentation is going to be. And finally, technical uncertainty. So this was the first time ever our team was going to try a gluten-free option. It was unknown at the time if the product would be able to maintain its texture, its quality, its flavor, and if it would satisfy the consumer. So it's important to note that once you go through the 4-part test, that the product does not need to go to market. So if we had come up with this gluten-free bread and it had failed and we didn't want to take it to market, that's fine. That it will still have qualified the 4-part test, and the cost that went into creating that product that didn't go to market can still qualify for the credit. So the next slide, we have potential areas of R&D in the food and beverage industry. So just a couple more examples. in food specifically, improving the taste, the texture, the nutritional content of the food, incorporating newer sustainable ingredients into a formula, producing sample batches in a test or in a test kitchen, or having a pilot run. These are some examples that would certainly qualify in food. As far as process, developing techniques that reduce costs and or improve product consistency, redesigning processes to comply with a new federal or state regulation, improving machinery and equipment to ensure safe handling of the food. That's a big area that would certainly qualify. Another area is packaging, creating new packaging to improve shelf life, durability, product integrity, reducing materials or using more environmentally friendly materials in packaging, introducing a new or alternative material to improve packaging. So those are some areas in packaging that would certainly qualify for the credit. Another area is sustainability efforts. So creating new methods for minimizing contamination, scrap, waste, and spoilage, increasing energy efficiency of water, fuel, and utilities through introduction of new technologies, developing processes to convert waste to energy. Those are all, anything that you're doing that's environmentally friendly is going to qualify for the credit as well. So again, there is a considerable amount of R&D in food and beverage, but this is an industry that is not taking advantage of the credit to the maximum that they can be. So it's always good for us to come out and educate people on what the credit is and the areas that you would qualify. So what can be claimed? So you meet the 4-part tests, and we've gone over some of the eligible activities. Now, how can the credit be claimed? What are we looking at cost-wise? There are a number of different costs that we look at, and we look at the total amount of money that you are spending on R&D each year. So the first cost category we look at is W-2 salaries. So we take a look at the wages of those involved in the R&D. So it could be somebody whose job is 100% dedicated to recipe and new product development, or it could be the CEO or CFO who's supervising that person. It could be a part-time brewer or somebody who maybe only devotes 10% of their time to R&D. We're going to take a look at everybody's salaries and the portion of their time that they spent on the qualifying activities. So the second cost category that we look at is subcontractor costs, so 1099 costs. Maybe you're subbing out manufacturing costs, or you're subbing out lab costs to do some testing on your food. That's areas that would certainly qualify as well. The next cost category would be raw materials. Would be your raw material and supply costs. So testing different ingredients and recipe development, or testing out different packaging for a longer shelf life. Those are examples of activities that would qualify. So the next cost category is geared a little bit more towards the software companies that we work with. But we have come across many food companies that have developed internal software, and that internal software that you've developed, that would qualify as well. And then finally, we have legal fees. So legal fees that are associated with filing patents, those are costs that can be included as well. And there's so many food and beverage companies that want to patent their idea. A lot of the food and beverage companies that we work with have patents. So that's a big cost that can be recuperated. And again, if you're unsure about any of the qualifying costs, I can certainly help determine if they're eligible. Typically, of those costs, you can expect to recoup about 10 to 15% of the total cost of these categories. categories. So it's on, salaries, subcontracting costs, raw materials and supplies, legal fees. You can expect to receive about 10 to 15% back. And then I'll explain how that works as well. So show me the money. So we've gone over where the R&D activity is and what the cost categories we look at are. Basically, if you're paying income tax or if you're paying payroll tax, you can benefit from this credit. So the R&D tax credit reduces your income tax liability for your current tax year. If you've never claimed the credit prior, the IRS does allow for you to look back 3 years prior. So for those 3 years that we're able to look back at, and if you were profitable, you would actually receive a refund for overpaid income taxes. So that's where this credit can become extremely valuable for companies who have never claimed before and are looking for some much needed cash. So especially in the time of COVID, if this is something that you haven't looked into before, and I know everybody's a little tight on cash right now, this is certainly a way that you can get some additional cash during this time. So the credit, the regular R&D credit that I'm talking about right now, that credit is available on both a state and federal level. So the subset of the regular R&D credit, remember how I told you in the beginning that it was rewritten so that it could help out younger companies as well. So that's how the payroll tax credit can help you. So the payroll tax credit is a subset of the R&D tax credit. So what we do here is we look at all the same cost categories that we've gone over in the past few slides. We do the same cost calculations based off your qualifying activities and associated costs, except instead of going towards your income tax liability, the payroll tax credit will offset your payroll taxes, so your FICA taxes. So this credit's designed, as I said, to benefit younger companies with no or very small income tax liability, but you do have a payroll tax liability. So there are a few restrictions around the payroll tax credit, and I'm happy to review that in detail with you. But essentially what it does is it reduces your payroll tax liability on a dollar for dollar basis. So if you have, let's say, $1,000 in FICA taxes a quarter, and you're eligible for, $4,000 of for your R&D tax credit benefit, you can apply $1,000 a quarter towards your payroll tax credit, where you would effectively eliminate your payroll tax liability, and that would free up some cash for you on a quarterly basis. So again, really helpful during COVID, a couple ways that you can get some cash flow in your business. Because both of these credits are permanent, it's a credit that you can take advantage of every year and you can write into your business plans. So you could be an early stage food company and you start out by taking advantage of the payroll tax credit. And then once your eligibility for the payroll tax credit is over, you can only claim that for a 5-year window. Once your eligibility for that is over, you can start taking advantage of the regular R&D credit and start putting the credits towards your income tax liability. And again, I'm here at Leyton. We're happy to speak with you and figure out which version of the credit you're eligible for and figure out a plan going forward on how you can take advantage of the credits and roll them into your business plan. So the next slide is, I'm just going to quickly go over an example of some of the companies we work with. So this is a startup organic baby food company that we work with. They're established a couple years ago. They have about 30 employees. Some of the qualifying projects that they had was some in-house flavor development. They need to figure out how to take the sugar out of the food. So they did all that in-house via, with lab testing, recipe development. And then they also had some manufacturing challenges. They were doing all their manufacturing as well, so that they had some in-house manufacturing challenges that they worked through as well. They grew pretty quickly, so they had to figure out faster, more efficient ways of packaging. And again, all that was being done in-house. So their total benefit, they were lucky enough to be profitable, and they did a look back. So their look back for the 3 years plus the 4-year was 150K benefit. So another company that we work with, and again, I mentioned we work with a lot of breweries, a lot of kombucha companies. So another kombucha company that we work with established a couple years ago in a basement. They started basically by playing around with the fermentation process, and they did a new recipe development. I believe they have 30 different flavors of kombucha. They're always playing around with the levels of carbonation and bottling for a longer shelf life. So they had a number of qualifying activities, and their benefit was a 45K benefit towards their payroll. So just this is the process. I'm gonna breeze through this just really quickly. This is just the process at Leyton on how we can help you claim for the credit. It's designed to be very minimally disruptive, 4-step process. So we're not, everybody has a business to run. We don't want to take up your time. We don't want you to have to put all of your time into figuring out what you qualify for. That's certainly what we would do. We'd have a very high level conversation with you to understand what credit you qualify for, the regular R&D credit or the payroll credit. We want to understand how your business is structured, figure out if it is a good time for you to take advantage of the credit. The next step would be to speak with somebody from our food and science team who would potentially be doing the actual R&D study for you. And this would be a very high level conversation to understand at a more technical level where the R&D is at your company. So we do take a unique approach in that we have a dedicated in-house team of highly experienced scientists, engineers, tax accountants, and tax attorneys. They would work with you on your study. We do have a whole food and beverage team that works on all the food and beverage R&D studies. So they have a lot of experience in this specific sector. It's one of the larger sectors that we work with. They're always happy. They're very knowledgeable, always happy to help you, and figure out where your R&D is and maximize that benefit. So if that's something that you're interested in, and you're interested in the study, certainly reach out and we can help you over at Leyton. So again, this slide is basically just, as I've touched on before, we do encourage and work with our clients to claim for the credit every year. It is a great benefit that the government is encouraging companies to use, as it does encourage innovation and job creation in the US. So we can help you build the credit into your business plans year after year. There's a number of ways we can help you maximize the credit to structure your business so that you're taking full advantage of the credit. And as you go on, it's easier and easier for you to know yourself what the qualifying activities are and what the qualifying expenses are. So it makes it easier for you to track and better claim the credit each year. Again, as I mentioned, I can't mention this enough. Just especially during COVID and companies being low on cash and looking for additional cash flow, this is a great way for you to get some additional cash flow, which you might not have even realized was available to you. So whether it be through the payroll version of the credit or the regular R&D tax credit, again, this is a great benefit that people can take advantage of. And again, especially in the food and beverage industry, startups or established companies, anybody can take advantage of it. So just a little bit about Leyton. We were founded in 1997. We've opened offices in many countries where the credit is available. We have 27 offices in 11 different countries. Our headquarters for the US is in Boston, and we also have an office in San Francisco as well. We work with a number of innovative food startups out in San Francisco. We have 1,400 employees currently, and we're continuing to grow. We have over 20 years experience in the R&D tax credit space. So we do have a great understanding of the credit and how it can benefit your business. And again, I'm happy to speak with anybody, and I'm happy to answer anyone's questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Erica. Great information and very helpful for people that, especially these days, are looking very critically at their cash flow and their financial models to recoup costs wherever they can. We will open up for questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and I will unmute you. Otherwise, Erica, we did have a couple of questions come through, and I will choose wisely because I know we're coming to 1:30. So related to what applies to the R&D tax credit, I mean, particularly with early stage companies, they're doing work, you know, at their kitchen level through a commissary kitchen, they're outsourcing some of the R&D, or for larger ones, they have a plant where they're kind of controlling a lot of that. Of those kind of 4 areas, are ones more or less applicable for the tax credit to get kind of those funds back?
I mean, all the areas would be applicable. It would be the amount of money that you're spending on the specific areas. So I know with a lot of the younger companies, like you said, that where people might just be working from their own kitchens even and might not be paying themselves a salary. I'd say for those companies, you know, and if they did have lab costs, that would certainly be a cost that they can recoup. Salary is a huge part of the credit of getting, you know, if you're a larger manufacturing company, or, you know, just a full-on just food processing company where you've got recipe development going on, you know, every day, or you're sending out, you know, weekly new products. They're going to have a lot more R&D and a lot more costs that they can recoup, as opposed to the younger companies. But I think that's somewhere, Lauren, where you can have a conversation with us. You might not be ready to claim for the credit now, but just knowing that the credit's available and being educated on it, and knowing that your certain activities and your certain costs will be eligible. You know, maybe you start hiring some employees and you start knowing that you'll be able to take advantage of the payroll credit once you're starting to pay FICA taxes. So, you know, I'm always happy to educate people on how they can claim for the credit, or how they can start building it into their business plan so they can begin to start using it.
Okay, great. Well, good to know. And I think, you know, just looking at some of the folks on the call, I know some of them are younger than others. So, so great to know that this is applicable no matter where and kind of how you're doing that R&D, depending on how it's tracked. Well, we are at 1:30. I knew this would go by quickly, but thank you so much, Erica, for participating. As a reminder, all of the recordings and this recording will be available later today on our YouTube channel. If you go to branchfood.com/servingupsupport, you will find all past presentations linked there, as well as upcoming presentations, which we will be continuing next week. Thank you so much, Erica, for your time. Such great information, and particularly timely given the upcoming taxes that are due. And so, so if people have questions, we'll encourage them to reach out to you directly. But if you would like to be connected with Erica, feel free to reach out to us at info@branchfood.com, and we can connect you directly with her. Thank you all for attending. As a reminder, sign up for our newsletter to hear about future speakers that are part of our Serving Up Support series, and take a look at the Branchfood additional offerings around community membership if you're looking for more dedicated support for your food business during this time. So thank you all again, and have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Bye, everybody.